Good morning.
And Brittany.
I want you to good morning.
Steve, you're set to begin at the top of the hour.
Okay.
Hey guys, sorry I'm running late this morning, but I'm here now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gavin?
Good morning. As chair of the commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order. This Zoom webinar is being live streamed on YouTube. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting MI to find the link for either viewing on YouTube. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. We have ASL interpretation available for this meeting. If you are a member of the public wishing you would like to easier viewing options for the ASL interpreter on your screen, please email us at redistricting@michigan.gov and we will provide you with additional viewing options. Similarly, members of the public who would like access to translation services during the webinar can email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for details on how to access language translation services available for this meeting. Translation services are available for both Spanish and Arabic. please email us and we will provide you with a unique link and call-in information. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at redistrictingmichigan.org for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed and those transcriptions will be made available and posted on redistrictingmichigan.org, along with written public comment submissions. Members of the media who may have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Tracy Wimmer, Media Relations Director at the Department of State. Members of the media should have her contact information. For the purposes of the public watching and the public record, I will turn to the Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Good morning. My name is Sally Marsh from the Michigan Department of State. Commissioners, please say present and unmute yourself when I call your name. Anthony Eid.
Present.
Brittany Kellum.
Present.
Cynthia Orton.
Present.
Doug Clark.
Present.
Dustin Witches.
I'm present.
Aaron Wagner.
Present.
Janice Villette.
Present.
Juanita Curry.
Present.
MC Rothhorn.
Present.
Rebecca Zatella.
Present.
Rhonda Lang.
Present.
Richard Weiss. And Richard, you might need to press *6 to unmute. We'll go to Steve Lett.
Present.
Richard Weiss.
Present.
Thanks, Richard. All commissioners
Thank
are
you.
present.
Okay, with everybody being here, we have a quorum and business of the commission can be conducted. Next, we'll take a look at the agenda and see if there are any additions, corrections, or deletions anybody would care to make. Not seeing any. Will all of those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, raise your hand. The agenda is adopted. If you are watching on a public forum, the agenda is at redistrictingmichigan.org. Next, we'll take a look at the minutes from the December 10th meeting. If you've had an opportunity to review those, I would entertain any corrections, additions, or deletions at this time. Not seeing any. If we would approve the minutes as presented, kindly raise your hand. Thank you. They are adopted, approved. It is my understanding that we have a couple of people for public comment. Is that still true, Sally?
Yes.
All right. A few notes about the public comment for those of you who are joining us for the first time. Because this is a virtual meeting, members of the public had to sign up in advance to address the commission. Staff at the Department of State will unmute each member of the public for up to 2 minutes on a first come, first served basis. This means members of the public will be called on in the order in which they signed up to address the commission. To those members of the public participating in public comment, please note you will have no more than 2 minutes to address the commission this morning. You can also submit your thoughts to the commission and the public by emailing redistricting@michigan.gov. The Department of State will provide your written thoughts to the commission by indicating in that email that you would like to submit your written comment to as public comment. It will be included in the online meeting archive for the commission. Public comment sign-up links are also posted on Redistricting Michigan social media pages on Facebook and Twitter at redistrictingmi. Now, I would like to recognize Sally Marsh from the Michigan Department of State, Director of Special Projects, who will call on members of the public to address the commission. Sally.
Hello. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to participate in live public commentary will now be allowed to do so. For those who are providing live public commentary today, after I call your name, your screen will change and you will rejoin the meeting temporarily as a presenter. You'll need to turn your sound and video on before you make those live public comments. And if you are using your phone for a microphone, you'll need to dial in at the phone number that you provided in your sign up. I'm not sure that we have that issue today, but just a note there. And if you do have audio issues, we will move on to the next person and then try you again once we are done with that individual. So first in line to provide public comment is Daniel B. Cook.
Hello. Am I on?
Good morning. We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me, letting me speak. My name's Daniel Cook. I'm a resident of Livonia, Michigan, and I really wanted to talk today just about district line drawing and when it's done. And as you do it, as you go through this process, you keep in mind your ultimate goals. You're going to hear lots of ideas about how maps should look simple and have straight lines and this thing and that thing. And we all have sort of our instincts about how things should be. But there's actually, of course, been a lot of work done on what the impacts of certain types of map drawing will be. Whether there's structural advantages to one party or another because of, drawing compact boundaries or having highly partisan districts where your incumbent basically keeps the spot for long periods of time without possibility of challenge. One that I think I tend to favor for the state of Michigan is highly competitive districts, where we certainly have some districts like in the Detroit area that will always be blue, and in northern Michigan that will always be red, and rightly so, representing their districts. But then we'll have we'll have the opportunity in many other parts of the state, around Grand Rapids, around Lansing, around the rest of the state, that voters will know that their votes matter when they go to the polls, because in years where we have lots of blue support, we'll have more blue representation, and where we have lots of red support, we'll have more red representation, and we'll also have independent representation, because there won't be sort of a stranglehold on districts as there has tended to be in the past.
Please conclude your statement. Your 2 minutes
All right.
is up.
Thank you very much for your time. Please reach out to me if I can be of help to anyone. I would love to be. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Next, and the last participant in live public commentary today is Susan Smith. Please allow us a moment for our staff to promote and unmute you. Please unmute yourself and you can address the commission.
Looks like you're ready to go. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Susan Smith, Vice President for Advocacy for the League of Women Voters of Michigan. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose political parties or candidates. We do take positions on public policy issues that we have studied. Redistricting reform in Michigan is one of those issues. After the state legislature approved the current maps in 2011, our members studied redistricting in Michigan and across the country. That study resulted in the League's decision to work for redistricting reform, including passing an amendment to the Constitution that would create an independent citizen redistricting commission. We worked for the passage of Proposal 2 and were thrilled when it passed in 2018. Since last September, our team of 12 trained League members has been observing and reporting on your commission meetings. As you know, communities of interest are an important part of the map drawing process. With 27 local leagues in over 40 counties across the state, including the Upper Peninsula, we are uniquely equipped to help identify those communities. Local league members will be identifying, educating, and supporting communities of interest in preparation for their testifying at the Commission's public hearings. We look forward to assisting the Commission in its outreach during the coming year. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. I would be glad to try and answer any questions that you might have.
I don't think we have any questions. We appreciate your comments and look forward to hearing from you in the not too distant future. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
That concludes our live public commentary this morning.
Thank you, Sally. Next on our agenda is an introduction and welcome to Sue Ann Hammersmith, our recently hired executive director. Good morning, Sue Ann. And do you probably ought to know this by now, go by Sue Ann or Sue, since I see Sue on your monitor?
Either one is fine. Sue's easier.
Just don't call you late for dinner. That's right. Okay.
Exactly.
Good. I'm assuming I can say without doubt that all of us welcome you on board. So everybody's nodding their head. Anthony's going no, but he's a little different. Give us some introductions of yourself. I'm assuming that maybe there are some people out in the ether who may not have watched all of our meetings with rapt attention. And so tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I have 30 years experience as an executive director. I guess that means I'm kind of old, but I love the work I've done in the nonprofit arena. Most recently, since 2004, I have worked both as an executive director of the United Way and also the local community foundation where I live in Lenawee County. My county is all abuzz with the news that I'm going to serve this commission. They're very excited. So I've heard from media and many people with congratulations. So I thank this commission for the work you've done to get to the thank the Department of State staff who have filled in when you haven't had an executive director and still continue to do so much work for this commission to support its work. So I'm happy to be part of the team and looking forward to adding a couple new team members very soon here so we can all get to work and make sure that fair district lines are drawn for the state of Michigan. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, and we welcome you again on board. Are there any questions from any of the commission members of Sue Ann at this time, or anybody wish to express their own personal welcome to her? Go right ahead. Okay. Well, once again, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Now, old business, we'd have a report from the Department of State. I assume Sally will be doing that.
Good morning. You assume correctly. I'll be pretty brief, and then kind of have a question for you all, and sort of pass it over to Sue on some of these logistics. So, computers that you all voted on have been ordered. They've been expedited. So I expect within the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have email communication about how to get those to you. Just as a refresher, it's going to be a little more complicated than just shipping it to your house. You'll have to meet up with a state technology representative, essentially, to ensure that the security on your device is set up properly. And so there'll be more details about that, but right now we're still figuring out exactly when those computers are going to get to our state offices to get set up. So they have been ordered, and more to come, like I said, probably over email between now and the next meeting. And I'd certainly hope that by the next meeting, I at least have a substantive timeline update for you all on that piece. And you all should have seen, but Sue has a state government email address. So I CC'd her on several emails I sent to all of you. Just wanted to flag that. That's happened, thankfully, very quickly. And Sue, I believe you should also be getting your phone shortly. So we're starting to get fully underway here. You're all very official. And then just a note that when Rob Serber from the Department of Technology Management and Budget addressed you all, there was the request for additional information about software and some of the stuff that group had procured over the years. He has recently sent that to me, so I'll be sending that along with copies of some of the PowerPoints from the various presenters you heard about in December. I'll send those along to you before the end of the week so you can review them at your leisure. And of course, the software piece being something that I'm sure you'll dig into in January. And then Kelly Services, you all should be set in terms of compensation. Let me know if that's not the case. And the sort of back pay lump sum should be on its way as well to be processed within the next week or so. So do reach out to me if you have any individual questions or concerns, or certainly reach out to the Kelly Services representatives, who at this point will probably be better suited to answer some of your questions. But just let me know if there are any issues there. But sort of on this topic, two logistical questions were raised by the Legislative Council and Kelly Services about designated approver, both for your timesheets, so your weekly timesheets, who's sort of approving it so that you can get that compensation, and then similarly reimbursement expenses, who's approving those based on, as you all have discussed in the past, state guidelines. And so, my recommendation, like I said, I'll hand it over to Sue for any of her thoughts here, would be to for all of you to set Sue as the approver of your timesheets and of those expenses, just from a ease and efficiency standpoint. So that would be my recommendation, but I'll turn it over to Sue if she has any other thoughts on that.
I am very happy to do this. It's a little uncomfortable to approve my own compensation and expenses. However, I'm certainly very happy to report to the commission on a regular basis. But I would ask how you would like to handle me specifically, and then I could actually handle everyone else. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, Sue.
I had some, Sue and I have had some emails back and forth regarding this. I would say back and forth. Sue sent me an email on it with some suggestions, and certainly she had suggested that someone on the commission approve her time and expense, keeping in mind that she's on a salary, so her time will be entered with Kelly Services, as I understand it, the same way we're doing it. She put in an hour every week and get paid on that, so don't need to review that. If we want to keep track of her actual time, we can certainly do that. Someone on, I believe, on the commission should be set to approve any expenses that she would have, such as mileage reimbursement, etc. We can either name somebody, myself or Brittany could do it, whatever the commission's pleasure is. Any discussion? Yeah, Rhonda.
Just a quick question. Do all expenses have to be approved by the entire commission? Or is this
I don't
giving somebody the authority to do it on behalf of the commission?
I don't think the commission has to approve everything. I think I would foresee the process being that Sue would approve employee reimbursements and then report on a monthly basis or something. We'd get a report that would show here's what's going on. And then if we had questions, we of course could ask them. Sue, are you seeing that kind of the process that you're suggesting?
Yes, I'm happy to handle staff, and also if you would like me to approve any reimbursement for the commissioners, I can do that, or somebody on the commission can do that. I don't think Kelly wants too many point persons, to do this work.
And I might just add, as a reminder, that both in the contract for the ED and also in the commission's previous conversations, there's standard state guidelines about what is reimbursable and what is not, and how much is reimbursed. And so, in not to diminish the role of the approver, because obviously that allows money to be dispensed, which is important, but I think it would more be a role, and for Sue or for anyone else who's doing it for her or whatever you all decide, it would more be a role to make sure that what the standard is being met. It won't be about discretion over all of these different potential expenses, because there are already guidelines that that all of you and that any staff would, based on what the commission has said before, would be following. So just wanted to put that out there, that it wouldn't be like a wide-ranging discretion, or it wouldn't have to be.
Yeah, that we're going to follow the guidelines if we ever get them. I know they're online somewhere. I understand that, but
I can redistribute them. Yeah.
I'm old school. I got to see paper. Operated a long time as an attorney with a lot of paper. Rhonda.
Then I just want to say that I would be perfectly fine with Sue handling that portion of it. As far as with the commission, I have no issue whatsoever. I think that's kind of part of her job description anyways, in my view. So I'm good with it, whatever the commission decides.
MC.
And I'd like to offer too that Sue, in order to give you some helpful supervision and to sort of share power, it does seem wise to have Steve and Brittany as our vice chair and chair be sort of the sort of go-to people to help with your own questions. And I want to offer, I like the idea of helping us create a structure so that we have more of our commissioners, so that we're sharing more power. And it's not just the chair and vice chair who will always sort of designated. If you can help create or suggest sort of committees, or seek out commissioners who want to be involved in, let's say, a personnel committee, and again, I'm not suggesting I know what structure it is, but I think I want to try to create more positions that help distribute accountability and sort of responsibility among our commissioners, so that we can each plug in and share the burden, so to speak, and give you better insights into what we're trying to do, what we're thinking about.
Thank you.
Sooner or later, we may actually have insights, but we'll work on that. Okay, so I think that we are probably at the point to say that Sue will handle the review and approval of staff, and her, either myself or Brittany, and I'm saying anybody can volunteer, and maybe Brittany doesn't want to volunteer, just to have two of us, either one could approve those. So we have myself or Brittany, and pick who you want to submit them to, so that there's always one person around who could do that. If that would meet with everybody's approval, raise your hand. And those opposed say, I'll do it. Not hearing anybody saying I'll do it.
Rhonda has a question.
Richard's on the phone. So with raising our hands, we haven't heard anything from Richard. So should we
Good
get
point.
a verbal from him?
Richard, have you been raising your hand?
Yes, I have, but you haven't seen me. I'm trying to be quiet here and listen. But yes, if you have any questions of what I think, I'll be more than happy. I'm thinking the computer's getting close here, so I may be able to log out of this one and go to the other one
Okay.
shortly, I hope.
In a legal step, then you are acknowledging that you have raised your hand on all the previous votes we've taken.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay. That takes care of that. General counsel hiring. So we're up to discussing who we're going to hire. And I'll turn it over to Brittany to have the discussion of who we're going to hire.
All right, you all. I think, oh, we already got our first hand. I was just going to say that we approached this similarly, to the process that we did last time. Of course, we can have decisive discussion, but I will start with Doug. You can share what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I took some time and went back and reviewed our last meeting, which was the interviews of the 4 individuals. My general opinion is we've got 4 excellent candidates. And I think any one of them could probably do the job. So I took a little more in-depth analysis of each of the individuals. And the opinion I came up with on each one, let me just review them quickly. On Monifa, I thought she was qualified, but I also felt that she didn't have the depth of the experience that the others had. So that was my general impression of her. I think she could do the job. I didn't have any doubts about that, but the experience level wasn't up to that of Julianne or Catherine or Jim, in my opinion. I took a look at Jim, and I think Jim had some really great experience dealing with government issues, legally. And I thought he knew his way around the government, understood the Constitution well, the Constitution of Michigan, and the Voting Rights Act, and so forth. However, during his explanations, I think I share the same opinion that I heard Juanita mention the other day when we met, is it was hard to follow his explanations. He got too involved into the legal aspects and the legal jargon and didn't really convert that, in my mind, to something that us non-lawyers or non-attorneys could understand that well. So I saw that in Jim. And so the 2 people that floated to the top for me was Catherine and Julianne. And again, like Jim and Monifa, both of them are excellent candidates. I took a look at Julianne, and she had some redistricting experience. However, when I looked at it, that was 11 or 12 years ago. Times have changed since then. Although the experience is good, and I'm sure there's a lot of similar things. Times have changed, and we're under some different guidelines than she would be. And I saw her experience as a microcosm of what we have to do. Detroit's a lot smaller than the state of Michigan. Okay. However, I mean, they did have the different ethnic groups within the city for the communities of interest and so forth. But I looked at it that way. I thought she communicated well. And I thought she had some extensive experience with other commissions. So I thought that was good for her. However, to me, Catherine floated to the top. And the reason being, a number of reasons. One, I felt she was very forward thinking. The impression I got from her is she wanted to prepare us legally as we move forward. She wasn't one that would deal with things as they came up necessarily. She will, of course, but she is one that would look at it from a more systematic approach and looking out for our long-term liabilities and putting programs together, or advice for us to put programs together that would protect us from that sort of thing. I think she gave some examples. One is our documentation and how we kept that. I think those types of things. Another one is something MC just brought up a few minutes ago, was let's spread the work so that we're not getting ourselves in a legal position where everything's focused, all the work is focused maybe toward one individual or so forth. So I think those forward-thinking ideas are what we're kind of looking for. I think she communicated well. I thought she had an excellent approach on how she would work with the communications director. Her daily meetings with the executive director and the communications director and the general counsel, and if not daily, 3 times a week or so forth. Her verbal skills, I thought, were excellent. They were clear, they were concise, and they were right to the point. And I was impressed with that. So in summary, let me ask each of you that don't have Catherine at the top of your list to take a little more time this morning and review her qualifications again. I think she's a top-notch person. In my opinion, she's a top-shelf professional who I think would integrate extremely well into our team. People like Catherine aren't available that often, and we really should take advantage of this opportunity with her. And so I'd like to yield back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Doug.
Brittany.
Sorry, Doug, I'm facilitating. So I'll go with Rhonda.
Okay, after our last meeting, I went over all the resumes again, watched our last meeting online again, and I basically narrowed it down to one just to save time, who I believe is the top pick. And my top pick would be Julianne. And the reasons being, with her interview and her resume, it shows that she's got extensive experience with application and interpretation of the Freedom of Information Act, the Open Meetings Act, Robert's Rules of Order, and she does have the redistricting experience. She made a comment about having governmental experience, but not political. And I believe MC even has mentioned that in some of our meetings, that there's a big difference between governmental and political. The Voters' Right Act, when I looked at the supplemental questions for everybody, she was the only one that it seemed had actual experience with interpretation and application of it. The others stated that they had knowledge of it, but it seemed like she was the one that actually had applied it. She has experience with project management outside of legal experience, which I think would be very beneficial to help Sue in her job. She's worked with commissions and has over 10 plus years advising commission and boards, which that's what we're looking for, somebody to give us legal advice as a general contractor. The fact that she's been following Supreme Court cases, executive orders, et cetera, as it pertains to this commission and the others that she's working for, I think is a good thing. She studied our timeline. She talked briefly about a 30, 60, 90 legal plan as it applies to us. She's got experience coordinating with community forums and meetings, which I think is beneficial, again, both to our executive director and it'd be beneficial to our communications director. She does have litigation experience. I was also impressed with her community involvement, from voter education, pro bono expungements to improve access to jobs, housing, and education, and doing pro bono representation and counseling to victims of domestic violence, which I know that does not pertain to the job duties of this job, but I think it speaks volumes to who she is as a person. You get people that can talk about wanting to help the public or improve communities, but it seems like she's actually done it. So I think her reasonings for wanting to do this are very sincere. And lastly, more on a personal level, I personally felt comfortable with her interview. I saw her as somebody that I could trust, which is very important to me. I saw her as somebody who would be easily approachable and easy to communicate with. There was a couple interviewers that I was a little edgy about, not sure about. And I've said this in other meetings, I didn't feel that way with her. There were no flags that came up. And I've said in other meetings that I always trust my gut. I said that about Sue Ann when I read her resume, that something about it. And then after I interviewed, there was just something about her. And that's how I feel about Julianne. I call it silly, if you will, but I believe in listening to your gut and your intuition. Lastly, I just want the commission to know, and kind of the public to know, how I came up with my decisions. I kind of looked at 4 aspects in rating of myself. I looked at experience, and if I believe that the person is capable, informed enough, and able to do the job and duties that are required. I did take into consideration number 2, public comments, because good, bad, wonderful or not, we are working for the public. And I said that even with the executive directors, and I'm maintaining that. Third, I looked at how I first personally felt. Was there anything that I felt, flags going out? Was this somebody that I felt that I would be able to work with, that other commissioners could work with wonderfully? And lastly, going back to the public comment, I did look a little bit at their political affiliation and if I believed that there was conflict of interest. With Julianne, there was no public comments. She was very open and honest about her 2 contributions and why she contributed to them and when she did. And I just felt comfortable with her. And I know Brittany in past meetings has talked about us keeping a consistency with this commission and doing the same for one as we did for others. These were basically the same things I looked at for the executive director position. So these were the same things I looked at for this position. And these are the same things I'm going to look at moving forward for our communication. So I just want to put that out there so there's no question. I ranked highest on experience though. When I'm looking, I gave a higher percentage to the experience, less so to the last 3. And that's it. I give the floor back.
Thank you, Rhonda. If anyone doesn't mind, I would like to jump in quickly, and I'm going to keep it short. I think my top 2 choices were Julianne and Monifa. Ironically, my choice for Monifa was similar to what Doug shared about Catherine. I think there's a sound ability there, and where maybe there is a little uncertainty about experience, I think the willingness and drive kind of overrides that. I think we've already discussed candidates that maybe weren't high in the experience realm, but there were other things that we found to be applicable to the role. But having said that, and following up with Rhonda's comment, Julianne edged Monifa out to me in terms of experience. And I think when I looked at the candidates as a whole, my thoughts of them came in kind of 3 areas. How do they interview? Do I view them to be individuals with integrity? And then their experience. And out of everyone, if we were, and I'm also objective. So despite the public comments that come in, I'm always looking for how does the individual present in front of me and what do they choose to share with us? And I do agree with what Doug said about Jim. And I think Julianne is kind of that great positive opposite of being full of experience, able to be accessible, not only to us and be personable, but there is a transparency there. Even though she is highly intelligent, highly qualified, could easily, make decisions and make recommendations, I can tell from her interview and having reviewed her resume that her goal is to have us understand the type of decisions that we're making. And I think because none of us have served on this type of commission before and is, our mapping experts to my knowledge. I think that person is more valuable than someone that can kind of talk at us. And as I've shared before, may have the tendency to make decisions based upon having such an intimate relationship with how this commission was formed. My greater point is that I think we need to think seriously again about how we choose candidates. Are we going to do away with public comment, or is it something that we're just going to fluff off? Or are we going to deeply consider those things and consider it a conflict of interest when someone has a close tie to how the commission was formed, or either is a friend or affiliate or acquaintance on someone on the commission? I think those things do matter. And for that reason, Julianne is my top choice. There's not conflict there, and her resume is, I would argue, more competitive than Jim's. Yes, Rebecca.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that point about deeply considering public comments, because we all know I'm a digger. So I've done some digging the last week because I was really troubled by the comments I was seeing about Jim Lancaster. And so I wanted to do more digging into it. And this is sort of a summary of what I've discovered. So the very first letter, I don't know if you noticed, we received was from a man called Anthony Daunt. Tony Daunt is his name. He wrote on letterhead versus everybody else who was email. So his letter was coming from the Michigan Freedom Fund. So I did a little digging on the Michigan Freedom Fund, and it turns out that the Michigan Freedom Fund is largely funded by the DeVos family, and there are various foundations. And it's a conservative advocacy foundation, mostly associated with Republicans. Almost all their donations are Republicans. However, I think the important fact is that the Michigan Freedom Fund donated over $3 million to Protect My Vote, which was the organization that was opposed to this ballot initiative. So from the very beginning, the Michigan Freedom Fund has opposed this ballot initiative. There are quotes from Tony Daunt in the paper, because he was the executive director, saying that we are committed to defeating Proposal 2, which was the Voters Not Politicians proposal that was ultimately adopted. The Michigan Freedom Fund challenged the petition language at the Board of Canvassers review. They lost. The language was approved. And then they fought against and donated significant amounts of money to prevent the ballot initiative from being adopted. After the ballot initiative was adopted, Tony Daunt in particular has been the lead plaintiff in multiple lawsuits against the Secretary of State to invalidate the commission. There's one actually that's active right now that he just filed an appeal in last week, where he is the lead plaintiff, where he is seeking to declare that the commission is unconstitutional and invalid, and that the administration and selection of commissioners is a violation of his constitutional rights. So this is a person who is actively opposed to what we are doing. He is actively trying to dismantle our commission. He is currently trying to dismantle our commission. And this is the organization that, if you look back on Facebook and you look through the social media, you can actually see that the Michigan Freedom Fund is the source of that script that we received from all those people about Jim Lancaster. So the organization that is trying to wipe us out of existence is suggesting to us who we should hire as our attorney. I have a problem with that. I think that is a massive conflict of interest. I think that Jim Lancaster actually touched on it in his interview. He sort of alluded to it, which is why I dug deeper, that of course they don't want us to hire Jim Lancaster, because Jim Lancaster has wiped the floor with them in every single legal proceeding that they have had against him. He defeated him at the Board of Canvassers. He defeated them in multiple cases. He defeated him in the district court and the Court of Appeals. So of course they don't want us to hire them. So I do think we need to consider public comment. I think we need to consider what people are saying, but I don't think we should be taking things at face value. I think we need to realize that there are people who have interests that may not align with our interests. And I think particularly when you have an organization that is trying to demolish us, that is saying that, that our existence is a violation of their constitutional rights and is actively trying to prevent what we're doing, I think we need to take those comments and any of the script that comes with it with a grain of salt. So taking that away and really digging deep into that. And again, all of this is public information. You know, as an attorney, I can pull lawsuits. Anybody can pull lawsuits, but you have to register and pay for it. So I pulled these lawsuits, and I just want to read from one of the lawsuits for you so that you can you know, see what I'm saying. So Daunt, this is from one of the lawsuits. Daunt has long been an active member of the Republican Party. He works in Michigan to advance conservative policies and to help elect Republican candidates. Daunt has served, among other roles, as the field director for the College Republican National Committee and a logistics manager and director for the Michigan Republican Party. He is currently an officer and a member of the governing body of the Clinton County Republican Party, a member of the governing body of the Michigan Republican Party Committee, and the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund. And then in the lawsuit, this is exactly what they're asking for. The lead plaintiffs, which is Anthony Daunt and the Michigan Freedom Fund, seek to have this court declare the commission unconstitutional and invalid, and the administration and the selection of commissioners a violation of plaintiffs' constitutional rights. So the comments that we're seeing are coming from people who are trying to destroy the commission. So from my perspective, with respect to Jim Lancaster, I just don't really think that those comments deserve a lot of merit. That being said, I did look into his political ties. I did look into all the comments, and I didn't see anything one way or another that convinced me that he was particularly partisan. I mean, people were saying he's partisan based on donations, but that was it. So going back to the principle of who is the most experienced, who has the most knowledge, I don't think there's any comparison between Jim Lancaster and anybody else. I think he is an expert. Everybody else is still learning. So he would be the one that I would vote for because I think he's the most experienced. And I understand, I feel like from my perspective, I understood him, but I'm a lawyer. So to me, what he was saying completely resonated and I didn't find it confusing. I think if other people aren't following him, we should have given him the chance, like we did with Julianne, to say, I don't understand what you're talking about with government in the sunshine. Can you explain that? Because I have no doubt he would explain that to people. That's what he does. He goes into court and argues things. And he has to make things understandable. So I think to some degree, if there was a concern about, you know, maybe he talked too much or maybe was speaking over people's heads, I think we need to challenge him on that and say, hey, Jim, speak like we're sixth graders, please. Or, you know, bring it down to a little lower level so we can understand because we're not following you. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. But I think the board needs to think carefully about who these public comments are coming from and not just take them at face value. Because I think, you know, if I was suing my neighbor, I wouldn't let my neighbor pick my lawyer. And I don't think we should be letting the Michigan Freedom Fund tell us who we should have as our lawyer, particularly when they have every incentive to have us not pick the most qualified person. Because I guarantee you at the end of the day, the person that's going to be suing us when we finally approve our plan is going to be the Michigan Freedom Fund and Anthony Daunt.
Rebecca, respectfully, from what I've heard so far, people aren't focused on the public comment. They're focused on the way he interviewed. And I think to suggest that we should have baited him to have a different response, all we have is what how the candidate presents. So coming into this, he knows that not everyone is an attorney. And I think it was his responsibility as a prospective candidate to give his best interview. I do not think he gave his best interview. Cynthia, and then Doug, and then Rhonda.
Well, I also think that if we're going to say we're looking at the experience, and that's what I keep hearing from everybody's talk, like I'm going back to the experience, you can't ignore his experience. He's got over 30 years, whereas everyone else is less than 10. That's a huge difference. It's a huge difference.
But if he can't explain that experience, it becomes irrelevant.
Well, I thought he did very well, actually. But again, like, I feel like if someone with Julianne was basically saying, I don't understand, no one gave Jim that experience, that gave him that opportunity to explain it in a lower level if you weren't following. I think it's an inconsistent standard to give someone the chance to clarify and not give someone else the chance to clarify when you're not following.
I have something to say about inconsistent standards going back on the conversations of our interview, but it was Cynthia, and then I think Doug had a hand, and then Rhonda had a hand.
That comment, please.
Yes,
Can I
Rhonda.
please acknowledge it because it's pointed at me, and I feel I need to acknowledge this. I asked about the sunshine laws because in her talkings and in her resume, it said something about sunshine laws. I did not know what sunshine laws was. So for me to ask her that question was for verification, for my understanding. So I don't understand how I'm supposed to ask every other person what sunshine laws was when it wasn't brought up until we interviewed her. Just want clarification there because it's been brought up twice now. Thank you.
Let's not take everything as a personal attack. This is a discussion.
I don't think she said that it was a personal attack.
Rebecca had her points. Rhonda, you had your points. Let's try to keep it on an even keel. Don't take affront, anybody. This is a discussion.
So to make this a safer space and a brave space, I want us all to be able to say what we need to say and it not, if we're going to vocalize, we can't assume that someone's taking something personal. These are all of our thoughts. And so we have to have these discussions, heated or not, contentious or not, but they have to be respectful. Cynthia.
So I want to thank Rebecca for doing all that legwork for us. I looked at a few things and found a few things as well, but of course not as much as she was able to find. So I appreciate that. I do think that we need to read every public comment and take it seriously, and yet look at where it's coming from if we can find that information. That being said, without all the background and stuff, which I can give if you want, my top two picks were Julianne and Catherine. They each edged each other out in different ways, but really, I think either one, we couldn't go wrong with either one. I do think we had a good group of candidates. So,
thank you, Cynthia. Anyone else? We all have to share our choices. Yes, Richard.
Well, I'd like to make this quick if possible. I think all the comments by the public, but I noticed a lot of copy, cut, and paste in their comments, which is understandable, I guess, because you're trying to get your point across. I've looked at a lot of the comments. They're quite interesting. Some of them make a lot of sense. Some of them don't. Obviously, as Rebecca has said, as usual, she gave me some information that she dug into the importance of Mr. Lancaster's position, his experience. Rhonda, I also like you comments about your stuff. I agree with you 100%. Perceptions, everything. The only problem we have here is we need experience with this. And I guess I want one of you commissioners to please explain to me, the man that wrote this proposal is so partisan. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why is he such a bad guy? Because he gives money to the Democrats? All right, I get that. But he's not, he wrote the proposal. That's why we're all here. So I need somebody to explain to me. So maybe the solution is to hire two of them. Hire Mr. Lancaster and another attorney. I don't know how much work there's involved here. Maybe that could be split up as far as wages or whatever. I guess I'm open to some comments, but thank you, commissioners. You enlightened me very well with your comments.
Thank you, Richard. You're a commissioner too. So we're all in this together. Doug.
Yeah, I'd like to address Richard's comment about hiring two people. I don't think that's a workable solution for us. I think it would be difficult to separate work among the two people. I think we'd get a lot of differing opinions and potentially some contention. And I think we're better off with one individual. Now, I saw that recommendation come from a comment, I believe, from Tom McMillan relative to, I don't know if it was the executive director or the general counsel. And he recommended that. I felt that by going that route, that we would lose continuity, and that it was not in our best interest to have two individuals for one role. Just want to make that comment, and I'll make a short comment about Jim Lancaster. When I mentioned before that it was hard to follow his explanations, that was my assessment of him. When I assessed him after going back and looking at the previous meeting, I did not take into account the public comments for him, only because there was too many, and half of them were pro, half of them were con. We've gone through that before, so I took that variable out of it and assessed him against the other three. And in my opinion, he ended up to be the third of the four candidates. Well, based on that solely. Okay, I yield back to you, Brittany.
Thank you, Doug. I would have to agree with you, honestly. Can I do Juanita and then Cynthia?
I just want to say that I agree too. My assessment was not upon his those people talking about him and sitting in their views of him. It was on the fact that I could not really follow him in a way that I thought I should have been able to follow him. So I still stick to my person that my first choice, who was Julianne.
Okay, Cynthia. Thank you, Juanita.
Mm-hmm.
One more little comment that I forgot to say.
You're fine.
I did like Rebecca's suggestion last meeting of, I don't know if this would work out, but if we didn't hire James Lancaster as the general counsel, to maybe use him later if he's willing to, like when we do get into litigation. I thought that was maybe a really good solution.
Aaron, then Doug, then Anthony.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, like Rebecca, I have gravitated more towards James Lancaster due to his experience and his knowledge. And then my second pick was Julianne. Two, I noticed that a lot of that was the typical cut and paste, as Richard said. But I think to just dismiss him and his expertise, I think we would be cutting off our nose to spite our face. I'm curious what Steve, what your opinion was, Steve. And then I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Aaron. Anthony?
I'm just wondering, before I state my comments, I'm wondering if our new executive director has any thoughts, because they will have to work with this person quite a bit. So Sue, I don't know if you have any thoughts, but if you have any, I'd definitely like to hear them.
Thank you, Anthony, for asking. I was waiting to hear the comments from the commissioners before I spoke. So if anyone else would like to say anything before I give my comments, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Sue. That's a great consideration. MC.
I guess I want to acknowledge what Richard said, that there's something about the independence of the group that brought us here, the expertise that Jim Lancaster brings is no doubt. And because we're looking for general counsel, I guess what I'm thinking about is what Aaron raised, or Cynthia just brought back up, right? Rebecca has said we need a litigator, we need to win, and we know it's going to be Tony Daunt, and the Freedom Fund is going to be like one of the major parties. And so I think, but as general counsel, the interview also didn't go that well for me. Like, I want somebody who's like Julianne, who can explain at a moment's notice and has a real depth of experience. So the experience matters. So I wouldn't mind Jim being my general counsel, but gosh, Julianne gave me that feeling that that she could say it, that there was an ethical standard, and that she has a civil servant attitude that I feel like is going to be really important as we have our counsel, because we're looking to set ourselves up for we need to educate ourselves, and that general counsel, I think, is the person that's going to help us. And then we need to move into litigation. And I don't think Julianne's going to be like, she has great experience there, but certainly Jim has, as Rebecca stated, right, has the proven track record, and we need to be able to like pull on that if possible. yeah, if he's willing. But I guess I'm for Julianne. I just wanted to offer that feels really important that we check. I'm going to stop talking.
MC, you were fine. Aaron, and then Doug, and then Anthony.
I think Jim could probably sidestep any litigation issues we may run into because he's been there. And my next suggestion would be to possibly bring back our top 2 picks for another interview, and maybe they can both, plead their cases.
Thank you, Aaron. Anthony, I think that was the order.
I think Doug was ahead of me.
It was Doug. You're right. It was Doug. And
Go ahead, Anthony.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, I agree with Brittany in that I think the idea of consistency needs to be discussed further. So perhaps adding to the agenda for a future meeting, a discussion like she was talking about consistency and how we're going to handle this kind of stuff in the future might go a long way. I think individually, each of us really has been consistent, but because some of the views may be in opposition, it makes us as a whole not consistent, even though on an individual level, I think everyone is pretty much holding the same views that I've seen since the beginning. So I think adding that to the agenda might be a good idea going forward. And I'd also like to thank both Rhonda and Rebecca for their comments, even though they're kind of, different viewpoints. I think both of you two really, did an upstanding job of going through everybody and kind of laying down the pros and cons of each. And I really do value the opinion of both of you. So thank you. Now for the applicants. I also kind of started from scratch after our last meeting. I went through and, looked at all the applications again, watched all the interviews again. And the list that I came up with as far as preference is James Lancaster, then Julian Pastula, then Catherine Kerwin, and then Monifa. I first looked at their resumes and applications, and as far as that goes, I had Mr. Lancaster followed by Ms. Pastula and then Ms. Kerwin. I looked at their area of expertise and I had them in the same order. Then I looked at comfortability, and it kind of changed a little bit because, I agree that I don't think James had, the best interview. So for comfortability, I had actually Catherine first, and then Ms. Pastula, and then Mr. Lancaster. And then I had, after comfortability, I had how I thought they did in their interview, and I thought Pastula had the best interview, followed by Kerwin, and then Mr. Lancaster. And then finally, I had, I gave this a low percentage as far as my total preference went, but I did find Ms. Kerwin to be the least controversial, followed by Ms. Pastula, and then obviously James Lancaster is the most controversial out of the bunch. However, I gave the most credence to the area of expertise and the resume portions because I really want the best lawyer for us. And, I think the best lawyer and the person who's going to defend us the most is James Lancaster.
Thank you, Anthony. Doug, did you have something to say? And then
I just wanted to comment on, having a general counsel other than James, and then having him join the group later, particularly if we have to litigate. I would see that scenario going where the general counsel would come back to the commission with recommendations of attorneys. If we ever got in that situation of litigation, which is probably probable, but and he may or may not be on that list of recommendations based on who she's comfortable with. And my experience with litigation in the past in corporations, in large corporations, is that it's not a one-man show. It's generally a team of people from a reputable law firm. And Rebecca could probably or Steve could comment more on that than I could, but that's been my experience. So, I mean, I'm looking at who I think we can work best with of that group of people and who can communicate the best with us. And that's where my focus is. I'll yield back to you, Brittany.
Thank you, Doug. Janice, I would love to hear your voice.
I just want to say that I also was lost when Mr. Lancaster spoke. I have no idea what he said. I thought that when he first started out, he kind of like took over the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just really, but Rebecca, when she talked, she kind of swayed me over. And I agree, like Aaron, I wouldn't mind hearing them both again. Both Mr. Lancaster and Julianne, to see, what it is. Right now, my choice is Julianne, only because I truly did not understand but you guys are talking about his experience. So I wouldn't mind hearing him again. That's it.
Thank you, Janice. Oh, Anthony, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say, I definitely, after watching all of them again, I definitely agree with the idea that, especially, at the beginning of the conversation, James Lancaster kind of, took it over and spent a lot of time talking to us. But I also think there was, a reason for that. He came in with, I don't know if you want to call it a handicap, but he came in with the controversy that the other candidates didn't come in with. So I took it as, yes, it was long-winded. Yes, I thought, like I said earlier, I thought, his interviewing skills were a little worse than the other candidates. But I do think we should keep in mind the reason for that is he was trying to address, the things that people said about him, which I appreciated.
Anthony, I see what you're saying, but I also think take it as a mark of respect, because there wasn't even a first question. And I think if I think back to our executive director candidate, there was at least a pace to the interview. There was, she gave space for us to ask the questions. And beyond that, there was that initial part that there was an explanation. I was looking for just kind of a direct answer, but then everything after that, I felt almost as if we were listening to a panelist or a lecture on a redistricting commission, and that made me feel uncomfortable. And I'm sorry if this is in the space where we acknowledge those feelings, but I think that we are working with this individual. So if there's this amount of discomfort already, I think we also need to take that in consideration, that even, if I'm choosing him, these are 13 people that have to work with this individual. And it's not just litigation. There's a whole other aspect to the role of general counsel. And this person also has to be community minded, and to a certain degree has to be likable or approachable. So if all of this doesn't even matter, like I said, public comment aside, there were other things that we noted about him that I think we need to take seriously. And then again, thinking of continuity, if we have someone that is a hot button topic or we become indecisive, are we going to give everyone a chance for a second interview? And is that time efficient? So that's what I would offer to that discussion. Doug, I know you have something to say. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I agree with you 100%. Yeah, and it's relative to second interviews. I don't think we're going to get much out of it a second time. I think we've heard what we're going to hear from these people and the impressions we've got from them. So I would suggest we don't. And maybe what we want to do is move on to a straw vote to see where we stand at this point. I yield back, Brittany.
MC has something to say.
I guess I'm thinking about, I think, I'm not sure that Steve has shared yet, and then I think Sue wanted to sort of give her impressions.
Steve, would you like to say something? And Sue, are you ready to give your impression?
Sure. My impressions, I guess, are number one. Previously, I've talked about the impact of myself having Jim as an acquaintance, and that's all he's been. So I've said everything I want to say about that. I do agree with Rebecca as to the Michigan Freedom Fund and their campaign of letter writing. Once I've looked at the the first 100 emails that all say the same thing, I have a pretty good idea of how large their mailing list is. And so it becomes rather insignificant, not totally insignificant, but certainly pretty much insignificant. I also read some of the letters in support of Mr. Lancaster, and there were some people in there that I knew, and I certainly would give credence to their opinions. But having said all that, if you look at these four people, Mr. Lancaster has clearly experience in litigation. He has clearly experience in Voting Rights Act, and clearly he had a significant role in getting us on the ballot and approved. So I think that claiming, as the Michigan Freedom Fund does, that he would be too partisan, I agree. I don't see it. If he's partisan, then he's partisan in the correct way, which is an independent selection of districts based upon verifiable information coming to us. Of the others, Catherine is clearly a litigator, and there's nothing wrong with that. Her experience is in the litigation for the Attorney General. Julianne probably has a little less litigation experience, but has a lot of experience in the city of Detroit and Wayne County and the Southeast Michigan area, which is going to be important to us in our communities of interest. I would hope, though we did not question her on this, that she would have some idea of who's around and about in Southeast Michigan, which is probably going to be one of our more problematic areas in coming up with balanced districts. So for those reasons, and especially having taken Rebecca's comments into concern, is, I don't think, at least in my mind, that while we have to pay attention to public comment, we can't let public comment make our decision, because if we did that, they're just going to have a letter writing campaign to us, and it's so easy to do nowadays with emails. You just cut and paste. You don't even have to go to the mimeograph machine, which probably most of you have no clue as to what a mimeograph machine is, and roll a bunch of them off and mail them off. So I think while I don't necessarily want to extend the process, if enough of us think that another interview between who I would consider the top two, Jim and Julianne, would be useful, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm also not opposed to voting today. I certainly have the people in my mind that I'm going to vote for. I think out of the ladies, that probably Julianne rises to the top of the list overall. Doesn't have litigation experience, I don't think, but quite frankly, our general counsel is not going to be doing a lot of litigating. We get into litigation, we are going to hire a litigating firm that's going to represent us. One person, as Doug says, you're going to have a multi-person firm. And quite frankly, the way it works is you're working with whatever the senior partner is, and he's got about 10 clerks working under him doing all the real work. Right, Rebecca? That's all I got.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you, Steve. I think those were thorough comments.
I just don't think that we've heard from Dustin yet. So I just want to point that out. I don't see him.
I was looking for Dustin, but I don't see him unless he's by phone. I don't see.
Dustin had to leave at the last minute for a personal matter.
Okay.
He can't even raise his hand.
I usually track pretty well, and I was like, I don't think he's here, but I wasn't going to say anything.
We still have a quorum, so we
yeah,
can.
That's fine. Sue.
Okay, wow. Thanks to everybody for all your comments, to Doug and Richard and MC that brought these candidates forward. Very good discussion this morning. I'm not going to repeat anything that anybody has said, so you're not going to hear much of my comments that I had written and prepared. We do have 4 good candidates. It's wonderful to have this difficult decision and this challenge to find the best person to serve this commission. I thought Catherine was very prepared. She'd been watching meetings. She's a public servant. She is a litigator. And if you go back and look at the job description, this isn't necessarily litigation job. It's a job to work with this commission, to communicate with this commission, to help in every area that we as a team will be working from now until the redistricting is finished. So I thought Jim wasn't the best communicator in his interview, as some have stated. Julianne said her skill set was she was specialized in serving public bodies. And she mentioned Detroit as a microcosm. This is the most difficult area where we will have communities of interest and need to work especially diligently in that area. She said she would treat staff with collaboration and mutual respect, with great communication, with our common goal to serve the commission. I like that. She does have project management experience, and that's going to be pretty important, I think, in our tight timeline. And I found her to be very respectful of everybody. She is the only thank you I saw after the interview. That to me, I mean, I have never participated in an interview. And by the way, this is my first one since 1989 for this job. But I've never participated in an interview when I didn't send a thank you afterwards and, let that body know, whatever the decision, you appreciated their time and you wish them best. And she did that for us. So I just felt the strongest connection with her. I thought she communicated very clearly. So Julianne would be my top choice for those reasons. But you are the commission and you get to decide. So I wish you the best in making this very difficult decision.
It dropped us back off in the ocean together, Sue. Okay.
I did.
No, but that, thank you. That was appreciated. I can speak for myself, but I'm sure the rest of us felt that way. And it's good to have that extra perspective. So, yes, Doug.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we take a vote at this point in time and move forward with it.
Okay.
Let me see if we can get through this and suggest, is there substantial support to re-interview people? And if you want to re-interview, let's just take a straw poll. If you want to re-interview, and I hear Julianne and Jim, raise your hand. That's 3. If you don't want to re-interview, raise your hand. No re-interviews. All right. I'm going to suggest a voting parameter, even though we've theoretically narrowed it down to 2. I would propose that we have everybody vote on who they want as their top pick, and we take the top 2 and have a runoff. Does that sound good? I'll take another straw poll. If you're in favor of that method, raise your hand. Any opposed, tell me what to do. Anthony, tell me what to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I think for consistency's sake, we might want to do the same type of system we did with the executive director position. I think it would create the same outcome as what you just proposed, Steve, if that matters. But that might be something we want to think about for consistency.
Well, you know, being inconsistent all the time is consistent.
Yeah, let's not be inconsistent though, please.
All right, so I'm going to take, we're going to do, everybody will vote for whoever they want, and we'll have a runoff on the top 2. Sally, please call the roll.
Hello, commissioners. All right, I will go in alphabetical order by first name. Anthony Eade.
Lancaster.
Brittany Kellum.
Julianne.
Cynthia Orton.
Julianne.
Doug Clark. Oh, sorry, Doug, I think you're muted.
Catherine.
Dustin is absent. Aaron Wagner.
James Lancaster.
Janice Villette.
Julianne.
Juanita Curry.
Julianne.
MC Rothhorn.
Julianne.
Rebecca Zatella.
Lancaster.
Rhonda Lang.
Julianne.
Richard Weiss.
Mr. Lancaster.
And Steve Lett.
Mr. Lancaster.
Okay, so I have, it didn't pass, so we will have to do a runoff. And just as a note, commissioners, you will need 7 to officially select this individual, and 1 from each political party as well. So we'll be doing some double checking before we move on, just to make sure that everything is set. So you would have to vote again.
Correct. All right, so we now have the candidates narrowed down to James Lancaster and Julianne Pastula.
Anthony.
With since we have a member absent, does that change the numbers at all? Because our quorum now is 12 instead of 13.
You know, I went back and looked at that after I misspoke several meetings ago on how many we need, and you need 2 things. Number 1 is the quorum, which we have, and number 2, it does not say that the number you need drops when the quorum drops. So it's my opinion that we still need 7.
And at the Department of State, we double checked that as well over the past week, and that's correct. You do need 7.
I'm glad they agree with me. All right, one more time.
Okay. This time I will go in reverse alphabetical order. Steve Lett.
Jim Lancaster.
Richard Weiss.
Jim Lancaster.
Rhonda Lang.
Julianne.
Rebecca Zatella.
Jim Lancaster.
MC Rothhorn.
Julianne.
Juanita Curry.
Julianne.
Janice Villette.
Julianne.
Aaron Wagner.
James Lancaster.
Doug Clark,
Julianne,
Cynthia Orton,
Julianne,
Brittany Kellum,
Julianne,
Anthony Eade,
Lancaster.
Let me just confirm. I think we're set, but let me just confirm. One moment, please. Okay, so we have 7 votes for Julianne Pastula, and there is at least 1 commissioner of each party who voted in favor. So the motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your comments this morning, and I certainly don't disagree. I don't know if anybody had paid any attention whether I did or not, quite frankly, with Julianne. She's, I consider her to be eminently qualified as well, and have no qualms about us having chosen her. I think she'll be an excellent choice. Who was on the committee? Where's my list?
The committee was MC and Richard and myself.
Okay.
Outstanding job.
Who's gonna contact her from the committee?
If I'm not mistaken, Richard, we would rather have Doug do it. Is that true?
Well, I'd like to spread the work a little. Rhonda and I did it last time as a team. So I would suggest that we see if there's any volunteers that would step forward and do it this time.
I like that. Good suggestion.
Well, since there's 3 of you, one of you's got to do it twice.
I see Aaron.
Do it last time, so that sounds like that was MC.
I'd be happy to work with Aaron if you're open to that, Aaron.
Oh, I think she said yes. Did you say yes?
I can do that, yes.
Okay, so you guys are going to get a hold of her, and we'll have to prepare a employment contract for her. Sally, if you'll have you and Mike or whoever's doing that, give us another employment contract similar to the one that we just had. I'm sure there'll be a few changes to be made, but not a lot. MC and Aaron you can tell her that she's on board, and we'll be getting her a contract. And how are we going to determine her salary? Doug?
Yeah, that's a comment I wanted to make. It was a multi-step process last time. Rhonda and I talked to the candidate, Sue, and we negotiated a salary with her, and then we came back to the commission for approval of that. Once we negotiated the salary with Sue, there was a document we put together that we presented to her. She signed, and then we brought that, and that had the salary on it. But it was not binding. It wasn't binding till we brought it back to the commission, and the commission approved it. And then we had the letter that you and
tuvimos la carta que usted y yo.
Then we had the letter that you and Sally had put together, and we presented that to Sue for final signature. I've got a short document typed up with the process that we used, and I can share that with MC and Aaron.
Okay, that same letter that you guys used for Sue, as far as the initial
correct
offer letter, that'll work. Just make the appropriate word changes.
Okay. Now, one of the things we did, Steve, was we voted. Let me see if I grab my notes real quick. We voted here in the commission to give the hiring team the authority to make a offer
within the range that was initially,
but not a binding offer. Yeah.
Right. The only caveat was within the salary range as posted.
Correct. So that was, the hiring team was formed and approved by the commission, which we just did. That approval included authorization for the hiring team to discuss compensation on behalf of the commission. And that's the initial letter. And then that, after the candidates signed that letter with that compensation that they had agreed to, that came back to the commission for approval.
Right, and at that meeting, we should have the contract in hand because we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that one.
Correct.
All right, if everybody is comfortable with this procedure, again, raise your hand.
What, Steve, sorry, one thing. I'm just thinking about whether we should include Sue, because we didn't have an executive director last time, and I'm just wondering about conferring just the weight of her position, right? Sort of including her in our committee. It seems wise, and I just wanted to, but yeah, I'm not sure if there's a conflict there, if there's a reason we shouldn't do it, but I wanted to make sure that we don't exclude her because we just didn't think about it. So I want to offer that we might, yeah.
That's okay. I just forgot her because she's brand new. So I think that she should be included with you and Aaron in this hire because she's going to be working with her. So if you, MC, and you, Aaron, and Sue would confer on how to make that contact and make that happen, I think that would be the way to go. Having said that, everybody agree? Okay. Anybody disagree? No. All right. We're up to new business and somebody's calling me on my ICRC phone, which I never answer. So January schedule and agenda. Sally.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Did everybody get the schedule? Okay. I take it, Sally, that since you put this schedule out, you had surveyed everybody and everybody was available on all these dates.
Yes, everyone who, a couple people didn't respond, like maybe one or two, but everybody who responded, these dates should work for all of you. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it also works for Department of State staff. And like I said, you know, Sue and I collaborated to make sure that that it was good for her as well. You know, there's a slight heavier emphasis, as you'll see, on afternoon and evening meetings to try to be extra helpful for those who do have jobs, and also sort of try out an evening meeting and see how that works for everyone. And then also a meeting on a weekend day, just in anticipation that once you all hire these staff members that you're going to hire, that you might want some extra time to do the work with Sue and others to plan out the rest of the year.
Okay, and these certainly are not cast in stone, and we can work with Sue to refine anything that's necessary as we go along. So after the first of the year, we're certainly going to have to make some efforts to get out into the community and start having these community discussions. And for us skiers, we may want to do the UP first while they have snow. Just a thought.
And on that note, actually, I should have mentioned this, but it's expected that by the end of the week, the legislature will pass an extension on the remote meetings for Open Meetings Act, so that in the first part of the year, for certainly, you know, if the legislation does pass, you will be able to still meet remotely, at least in January. And I think the extension is through the year, but we'll provide those details once the bill is passed. But just know that right now, this is written as if it's all remote meetings for the month of January.
That raises a question. I don't know that we have to discuss it, but in the amendment in the Constitution, it says that we will use technology extensively. So in my mind, that means that even if the legislation weren't passed that we continue to meet remotely, I think under the amendment, we could choose to continue to meet remotely. Ask Mike Brady that. Where is he?
There's Mike Brady.
Speak up.
I think he's
Take yourself off
unmuted.
mute.
Our computers sometimes take a second. Go for it, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. You make a good commercial, Mike. Go right ahead.
Good morning to you all. Steve, I don't think you'd be, without the legislation moving through the, that's moving through the legislature right now, this commission would be bound by the Open Meetings Act with a requirement to meet in person. So that is not currently the case because the law has been changed for a temporary period of time that allows you to act virtually. You're correct that the Constitution does require you to stream the, to have video and to stream the meetings so that other people can observe and perhaps even participate. But that's separate from the obligation that exists for this commission under the Open Meetings Act. One update is that the House did adopt the legislation. I believe it would take it out until April 1st. It is now to the Senate, and the Senate's expected to pass it. We'll certainly keep you apprised of that and update that, when that happens. So again, two different pieces: Open Meetings Act obligation and the obligation to use media to get word of the proceedings out to the public as a whole, and that exists in the Constitution.
Well, my point was somewhat facetious, but the real question is going to be when we go out for these community meetings, depending on what's going on, that's going to be a serious question that we're going to have to deal with. And our executive director will be looking at that closely.
Just the only thing I was going to add to what Mike said is that if you all will recall the in-person meeting that you had in October during that period of time when the legislature was taking up this legislation, we did live stream that. So that was an example of what, if and when you do have an in-person meeting, if you'll recall, we were live streaming, making sure the audio worked so that all of you could be heard by those watching back home. And so that's the kind of sort of, at a normal open meeting, you wouldn't have the obligation to do that, but you all have the obligation to do that.
I'm assuming that on our shows out in the public meetings that, as you said, we are going to be live streaming those everywhere. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Will it be the same team?
We certainly stand ready to assist. And Sally and Sarah and I have had a few conversations with Sue already just about, not that specific question, but just ongoing needs that may very well, arise for the commission and how the Department of State can continue to serve this commission.
Well, when I say the same
and
team, I meant the technical people. Are they?
I know.
Are they going to be the ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be those same individuals. We have other folks from the communications department, so there may be, one person swapping out here or there, as that is necessary and makes sense.
Good.
Yeah, but to just add to that, and we've already talked to Sue about this, but and we've said it to you all before as well, but certainly our entire office, our entire team stands here to support you all, as is written in the Constitution, but also, whatever you all need, we want to, support your success. So, so we'll be working with Sue to figure out how we best do that, especially now that you're bringing on, staff of your own, and really play that role of secretary without a vote, and also furnishing assistance as directed by the commission as much as we can.
Okay. Aaron.
So currently, to reiterate, January's are still remote meetings, not in-person meetings?
Correct. Any what we need to schedule communication interviews. How many do we have? The team. Who's the team?
I believe it's six 6 that you all voted on at the most recent conversation about this?
Yes, we have 6. And I wanted to revisit a resume of Walter Song because I thought he was
Sorg, S-O-R-G.
Sort. Okay, Walter Sort.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you say something, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
You
okay.
wanted to revisit somebody. Go ahead.
Yes, when we arrived at the number that we wanted to bring to you guys, we were trying to just keep our short list short. And after Steve had said something about how come we didn't choose Walter Sort, I thought it was Song. On here it's Walter Song. I went back and revisited his resume and looked at it real well. And I had remembered that I did write very good on his, and he has a lot of experience. Walter Song has a lot of experience in, let me get my glasses here. He created the ballot committee's names, and he became the third word message of the campaign. Well, his responsibilities within voters and not politicians was that he developed and implemented media relations strategy. He counseled the communications committee, which developed printed and web support materials. He provided media training for the executive director to prepare for her interviews. He did created initial PowerPoint presentations on gerrymandering to use at town hall meetings. I thought he was very informative when it came to the town hall meetings. He spoke at 24 town hall meetings in the first month following creation of the ballot committee. He also had primary liaison with the numerous Michigan political and nonprofit organizations. He had a real good profile and resume. His experience with public affairs, he was assistant executive director for the media for the State Bar of Michigan, primary media spokesperson and staff director for Michigan Department of Commerce. He had majority communication staff director and press secretary to the Speaker of the House Representatives, communications consultant for clients including Michigan State University, multiple state agencies, Fortune 100 companies and nonprofit associations. He had broadcasting and journalism experience. He produced and co-hosts Michigan Podcasts in 2019 and 2020. He was co-founder of Talk Lansing Netting Company. He was award-winning broadcast journalist for radio television stations in Detroit and Lansing, including CBS and TV Detroit. He's producers, he's done news media, website design, development, created and implemented social media marketing campaigns, advertising, marketing, and business development. And I just thought that he would be a good face for also for us if we chose him. He's very, very knowledgeable in this field for communications and as a communications director.
Okay.
So I thought we ought to put him on the list for an interview.
That would raise us to 7.
Yes.
And we have those scheduled for January 7th from 1:30 to 6, which typically means 6:30. So it'd be 5 hours. We may have to hold a couple over to January 12th.
So we're not gonna go with the original selection of the subcommittee?
Juanita was on the subcommittee. She's suggesting to add a person.
Yeah, I'm just adding.
Okay, Cynthia and then Rhonda.
I just think if we are going to interview that many, it needs to be on 2 days because after 5, it's just hard to still hear everything fresh.
And that probably would be good. I'm sure that would be excellent due to the fact that whoever our communications director is, he will be the face of our organization. So we We want to pick a good one. So I'd like to hear Walter's song.
Anthony.
I thought I was next, but okay.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Rhonda, Anthony has surrendered his position to you.
I just want to make a point that if somebody's going to be added, I think we need to vote on it, because I know for the executive, or not the executive director, the general counsel, I made a recommendation and it was discarded, never voted on. So I think if we're going to add anybody after the commission subcommittee has already made a recommendation and it's been voted on, that we should vote on them.
Is that a motion?
Not a courtesy. That's my motion. Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded that we vote on having, I take it, 7 people with the addition of Walter Sword. All in favor, raise your hand.
Wait, this is is this a motion to interview Walter Sword or
The motion to increase the number from 6 to 7 with the addition of Walter Sword.
I don't believe that's what the motion was. I think the motion was to to vote to put it on, if we to increase the limit, not necessarily to I can't verbalize what I'm saying. Rhonda, could you clarify your motion for me, please?
They were asking that somebody be added, this Walter Sword be added. So since we've already voted on the initial 6 that we were going to interview, I was saying we should vote on whether or not to include him.
Everybody clear on the motion now? Okay. You got a comment, Doug, or are you going to vote?
Doug
No,
and
I've got a
Cynthia look
comment.
like they have a comment. Yeah.
No, I wanted to make a comment, Steve. Maybe instead of adding one, maybe we ought to reconsider the 6 that we've got and reduce the number so it gets down to a more manageable amount.
Are you amending the motion?
I am.
So your motion would be to
Remain with 6 people, but we will add Walter and eliminate one of the others.
okay. Is there a second?
I think Cynthia has a comment.
I'll second it.
Okay.
And so my comment is, Walter is very qualified, the most qualified out of all the applicants that we had. So thinking back to our meeting, the reason that he wasn't on my list is because when I looked at political affiliation and social media, we're going to get the same thing that we got with the other people. All the people against, people for, so I took that into consideration. And that's why in our discussion, he wasn't one of the top 6. But if we want to do that, he definitely is qualified. And the other thing, well, I seconded the motion. I do think we should keep it to 6. There is one person on the list that was, well, 2 people on the list that were kind of added at the end that weren't on 2 people's list from our committee. So we could take a look at them, or if anyone else has other thoughts. Then.
I agree with what you said, Cynthia. That's why I kind of saw the little furrowed brow. I think the vote or not politicians' affiliation should be taken into consideration. Sue and then Anthony.
Since this decision was made, we have received a letter of support from a candidate from the other party, not his party, who he actually did a media campaign for. So I think that speaks to his nonpartisanship. And then also, if I can assist in any way, you have an executive director now who would normally hire staff that would work under the executive director. If I could assist in any way by doing pre-interviews and bringing recommendations to this commission, that might help you whittle your list down to a more manageable number, because 6 or 7 interviews is going to be a grueling process. So I just throw that out there. If you want to take advantage of me doing some of the legwork ahead of you, I'm happy to do that. Or if the commission as a whole wants to reduce the number, that's fine also.
Keep in mind when you get ready to vote that we have previously made a decision not to go to 2 days for interviews, because the second people are going to have the advantage of watching the first people and see what we do. So just a point.
Cynthia, and then Anthony.
Well, I just wanted to thank Sue for reminding us of this. We are not used to having an executive director, so we should use her to our benefit, to the commission's benefit. I don't know exactly how that is, but we do need to take that into consideration.
Anthony, thank you, Cynthia. And then Aaron, I see your hand.
I guess I'm just wondering, at our last meeting, we already voted to have the 6 people that we chose at the last meeting come in for an interview. So I'm kind of just wondering, how did, why didn't this individual come up when we were discussing this previously? I just worry about setting a precedent of, backtracking.
Can I answer that?
Please.
Yes. The reason why it didn't come up prior is because Cynthia and Janice and we chose the 2 or 3 people that we wanted. And that's kind of what we came up with when we put our little committee together. And I had 3, all of mine, and I had 3. And I think a couple of them, I think Cynthia, you had 3 or 2. Did you have 2 people that you suggested?
Well, I think you're thinking of the people that we actually presented to the commission, but.
That's what I'm talking about.
So yeah, I presented 2, but that wasn't my top list necessarily.
Well, the ones that we came up with is we didn't want to go over the amount that we had. We thought we'd kind of keep it as short list as we could. And so, but my 3 were all, we had so many applications for this job. We had more than we had for any of the other positions. And I think I went over 50. It took me about 8 hours to read every one of the resumes. And the people that I selected I put on there very good. Mind you, I did do 4 years of communications at Wayne State University and in journalism, and I did 4 years as a public relations person. And so I chose Walter Song. He was one of my first ones, but I had so many, I just grabbed the first kind of 3 that I wrote very good on. And those are the ones that I selected. And Janice and Cynthia chose the ones they wanted to select. But I just kind of thought that if we picked the ones that had had a lot of experience for this communications job, that we would, it could really get narrowed down quicker or whatever.
Thank you, Juanita. Aaron, and then Rebecca.
I was just going to say, I think we should take Sue up on her suggestion, maybe that she pre-interviews the 7, if we're going to go with 7. And I also wanted to say, I don't think we should discredit someone due to their monetary contributions to either the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or whatever. I think we really need to take into consideration their expertise at their job and what they're interviewing for.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, I was just going to second what Aaron just said, that I think we should take Sue up on her screening ability for the 7. But I did want to comment that Walter Sorg did come up during the last meeting. We specifically discussed him. I thought it was, and I may be wrong, Steve had said, what about Walter Sorg? And we had talked about it briefly. So he did come up. I don't recall what the final conclusion on that is, but I certainly think he's worth interviewing, especially if Sue is going to do that, sort of filtering function for us.
At the risk of sounding redundant, I know that I took off or I had to go the last meeting, but I watched it and he did come up and Cynthia said the same thing that she said today is her reasoning. And then that's my question. Why are we revisiting things that we've already made? It seems that we've made a decision on, and I think we have to stop doing that. That could just be my personal opinion, but we spend so much time waxing and waning, and we entrust the committee to do their job, and we need to let them do their job. Otherwise, let's scratch that and just make decisions as a whole. I have no problem with Sue offering to screen, so that's great. But I think we had the candidates and we should stick with that. And I think even reviewing them, we could pare it down even more based upon the qualifications. And I respect deeply the decisions and the education and all the work that went into presenting that. And that is where I stand. Rhonda?
I have to agree with you, and with Rebecca, we did discuss it briefly at the last meeting before we voted to confirm who we were going to interview. And now looking at it now, I'm wondering how many people of the 6 that we interviewed have watched this, know that they're going to be interviewed, and now that the discussion is we might bring somebody else. I mean, doesn't that kind of seem like a conflict to them, since we as a committee as a whole voted on the 6 that we're going to do? I would almost look at it as a slap in the face, like, okay, now they're going to add more. I don't know. That's just my personal feeling. I could be wrong in my feeling, but I can't help but feel that way for the ones that were chosen, were voted on. And now to say, well, I think we want to bring this one on for interview too, it just doesn't seem fair to me, but that's my opinion.
I just think that because we have not interviewed anyone yet, that it should not make a difference, because who knows, Walter Song may not gel with anybody, or he may gel, but we're trying to get the best face for our communications person. And that's all. I think we should look at every good application that we have, if we possibly can.
Okay, there's a couple of motions on the table. There's also a volunteer by our executive director to do a little of our work. There's a couple of ways that we can go. One is, and I think probably, I'm guessing that having Sue do a pre-qualification on the people is kind of what we are leaning towards. So we can have a substitute motion if someone wants to make it, or we can vote on the motions that we have now before us. And if we were going to do a substitute motion, the motion would be that instead of the 2 motions that are current, we would substitute having the executive director do a pre-qualification on, and I'll say the 7 names that we have floated and are talking about, and bring back to us her recommendation for who we're going to interview or start interviewing on January 7th. I think that would probably require that be done, those recommendations be done through email. So that's my substitute motion. It needs a second. Cynthia, you're seconding? No?
I have a question first.
Well, let's get it seconded and then we can discuss it. Okay. Aaron seconding. Okay, now you got Cynthia.
So my question is, can we take care of something like that by email? Because that would be helpful.
Mike can come in with us, but we're not making a decision by email. We're not hiring by email. We're taking we're having Sue give us recommendations. That's not a hiring decision. That's not, Mike, you want to chime in on that? Open meetings guru? I think he left for lunch.
I think Mike is
He's coming on.
Oh, there he is. I was going to say, I think he's trying to get on. Just hold on a second. Thanks, everybody.
Hello. So as I understood the proposal for Sue to be doing this, is not that Sue would have the authority to act. I don't view this offhand as being a delegation of the commission's authority, but rather Sue would be doing a review of the individual candidates that to the committee, considered everybody. The committee made a recommendation to the commission. The commission agreed and maybe looked at other candidates. The commission agreed to narrow it to specific candidates. At this point, given that the number of candidates it's narrowed to is still a sizable number, 6 or 7, Sue, this commission could ask Sue to meet with or speak with each of these candidates and then come back with her recommendation. And given that it would not be a formal delegation of authority, I don't think that there'd be any concern that Sue would be, a committee of one or anything like that under the Open Meetings Act. At that point, she might come back and say, actually, I think, these 2 or 3 candidates, something that's more appropriate perhaps for, public meeting interviews from the full commission, that would be her recommendation. The commission then would still have the ability to decide they wanted to interview, a 4th somebody, or they could, not accept the executive director's recommendation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think the question is, can we do that by email? Can we get her recommendations by email and schedule the interviews?
You could get her recommendations by email. You can't make, the commission cannot act. And if the commission is taking a vote to act, that decision has to be made at a public meeting. Right. But Sue could certainly write her comments to you in advance of a public meeting.
Okay.
But just, you would not want to respond to her.
All right. Aaron.
If we do that, will Sue's interviews be subject to the Open Meetings Act?
No, they would not be. Sue is not a public body. And if you delegated the authority to her, there's an argument that you could have created a committee of one, which is actually terminology the courts used. But that's not what you're doing. You're not delegating the authority. You're asking her to do her own review and come back and advise you all. That's a good question, Aaron. Thank you. I hope my answer is clear.
Juanita.
I just think that if we just go on and interview where everybody can hear it, then that's just as much time as we probably would take if when Sue do all hers and then come back and tell us.
Rhonda.
As far as the motion goes, I'm not for the motion because it was all kind of wrapped up into one, saying the 7 people, when my original motion was, should we not as a commission, or I wanted to as a commission, vote on if we're going to bring in that 7th person. I'm all for letting Sue do kind of a prelim, but I don't want it rolled all into one motion when there was already a motion that I had made. So it's like the motion is saying these 7.
On your motion, yeah, we're voting on the motion for a substitute, and if you don't want that, you vote no, and there's not a substitute motion.
But it was
combined back down to the motions of the amended motion and the main motion.
But is it combined in with the motion of Sue doing it? That's how I was listening to it, is the motion for Sue to do the preliminary on the 7. So is it rolled all into one? Because I have no problem with Sue doing it, but I would like to vote on if we're bringing a 7th person. See what I'm saying? The last motion that you just made kind of put everything in one basket. I would.
That's correct. My motion was a substitute motion that she would interview the 7 people and bring back her recommendations for whoever it is we want to interview. And that's a substitute motion that can be either voted up or voted down.
Okay, then I would like to substitute the substitute motion, if possible, and put in that we vote on if we're going to have a 7th person, since we already voted on the 6th, and then the second, and then a separate motion saying that Sue can handle the interviews.
I'm actually good with that.
Anthony?
Wouldn't, just for clarification, wouldn't Rhonda need to accept that substitution, Steve, since it was her motion in the first place? Because I believe Rhonda's motion was simply to go from 6 to 7. And I believe she wants to vote on that. And then after we vote on that, we can decide if we want our executive director to handle a pre-interview process. That's my
right. And I considered that a friendly substitute that we can vote on. I'm withdrawing my motion. We'll take hers. I'll second hers.
Both then.
So her motion is, are we going to have 6 or 7? Are we ready to vote? All who would approve having 7.
Rebecca has something to say.
Can we clarify the motion so it's not, are we going with 6 or 7, but just like, yes. Are we going with 7 or are we going with 6? So it's not confusing what we're voting on.
I was just going to say that. And it will be, are you in favor of going with 7 people? Yes or no? All in favor of going with 7 people, raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It passes. We're doing 7. Now, as I understood everybody's sentiments, it was to have the executive director talk with the 7 and come back to us with a recommendation on who we interview, which we can either accept, reject, or modify. So that's the motion. Have the executive director pre-interview the 7. Is there a question on who the 7 are? It was the original 6 plus Walter Sword.
I don't see why we can't keep it the way we've been doing with all the votes.
I don't understand what. You lost me.
Okay, I'm just saying that if we're voting that we do 7, why don't we just go and interview the 7?
Well, then you would vote no on this motion.
Oh, okay.
So
MC has something to say.
Pardon?
I guess I wanted to offer, Juanita, I think the reason if with the pre-interviews, we might be able to get more information and understand how we can not have 2 days of interviews with 7 people, 2 full, let's say full days, but have a 1 day with, more complete interviews and be able to, the pre-interviews I think help us. That's why I think we're making this motion, Juanita. And I see Sue's hand up too.
Sue.
I had trouble with my unmute button. The only thing this will do is kind of upset the schedule that has been made. I want to make sure that you're aware of this, because our first meeting in January, we were going to do interviews. And I think Mike is telling us, I can't decide who you're going to interview, and you can't decide outside of a public meeting. So just to be aware of that, if you would have to be, I'm not sure how that'll work with the open meetings.
Right.
Cynthia.
I see that Sally has something to say. So.
Yeah, just to add to what Sue just mentioned, if you all were to ask her to do the pre-interviews, she could of course tell you over email, these are going to be the recommendations that I'm going to tell you about in the next open meeting. You wouldn't be able to discuss it with her over email. You all discussing it with her over email would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, but she can give you, just like, I'll send you things sometimes before meetings or things like that. I can do that. Now, what I would suggest with the schedule, knowing that, is that we do the same dates, but adjust the time. So instead of Thursday, January 7th being a very long day, it would be a shorter meeting where you would hear the recommendations from Sue. You guys could get to other business items as well. I know there's a lot to dig into. You have no shortage of things to use meeting time for. And then we would have, I'll look at our schedules, but either the 12th or the 14th could be when you actually bring people in to interview. And we could adjust that timing based on how many people you choose to interview. So we might, for example, on Thursday, the 14th, might make it instead of from 9 to 12, 9 to 1, if you need a little extra time. But that would basically swapping some of the key agenda items here. And I think it would only put you back timeline wise only slightly and be a more, be an efficient use of your time that way.
Well, and everybody understand that, Sue will make a recommendation. If we choose not to accept that recommendation, we could choose to interview anybody we wanted. Yeah, outside this 6 or 7. So I doubt we would do that, but that certainly is an option. Are we ready to vote? Where did Erin go? Step away?
She says, yeah, step away.
Well, then we need to have her back.
Sally, maybe.
Anybody got anything for the good of the group while we're waiting?
I was just thinking about how the general counsel, I don't know if next meeting, right, Erin and I will have, and Sue, the 3 of us will have done something. So that will probably be part of the agenda on the 7th. Okay.
Sure. And by that time, we'll know whether or not they're going to accept and they can participate in that meeting.
Right.
You can let them know that.
And, as Steve had mentioned earlier in this meeting, us at the Department of State will work with you and certainly with Sue on both that initial letter and then having the draft contract ready to go. So there's not the same time between the initial letter and the contract being signed. I think we can do that pretty quickly since the initial legwork has been done for Sue's position. We've got a template.
And I think we've already, I think as a commission already said that the general counsel will get the same sort of a laptop and all that. We've got that cleared. Cool.
We've already got it on order.
Great. All right, that's all the stalling I'm doing.
Hey, tell us what kind of bread you're making today.
I just want to say that Walter Sorg is not my person yet, but I would like to hear him. I'm not opinionated with anyone yet. So I just want to throw him on there because he had such a good resume. And I just want to clear that up.
Okay, Erin's back. Erin, and for everybody, the vote, the motion as seconded is that we will have Sue pre-interview the 7 people, the 6 original plus Walter Sorg, and come back to us with a recommendation of who we are going to interview, which we will then make a decision on. So that is the motion. If you are in favor of that, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That pretty much covers it. All right. Sue, you have your marching orders. We did meeting dates. We have outstanding, excuse me, correspondence. Everybody should have received something from Gonwer publication, and I've seen on chat that some of you are of the opinion they want to know about me, go on Facebook and find out. Others are saying, I don't have a problem. I'll give them what they want. And so, I guess it's up to us. I mean, they're not asking us as a committee to give them any information, but they're asking us as individuals. Cynthia.
I think Sally was wanting to say something. It might have been about.
Well, you're more important, Cynthia.
I don't have anything except that Sally might want to say something.
It was about the meeting agenda. So if you want to get to this next item, and then I'll raise my hand again once you're done with this discussion. No problem.
I mean, that was just an observation. I mean, it certainly appears to me they're not asking us as a commission to give them any information. They're simply asking for information from us as individuals. And I see some of us have decided to give it to them, and others have said, go find it. So the other was a Wayne State, what I call the Wayne State study Is everybody know what I'm talking about when I say that? Okay. They're wanting to basically do a study on why not just us, but 9,000 of our closest friends made an application to be on this commission. Does anybody have any strong feelings one way or another? Rhonda.
Of course, I do.
Hey, everybody has feelings on this commission, so you're just as entitled as anybody.
I went over their letter, their proposal, and there's a few things that kind of bother me about it. The one is it's saying that the applicants would be all those who applied plus the commissioners that were chosen. And then in the letter, it says, in addition, we respectfully ask the commission for contact information of all applicants. Well, one, if they're grouping applicants, as it says in here, as everybody that applied, we don't have that. Even if we did, even the Secretary of State just put it down, not our addresses, not our phone numbers, but just the city we are. So I think as far as confidentiality of the people that applied, that would go against that. It says also that it's not mandatory that the people participate in it. They'll send something out, but then also says that they will do up to 5 follow-up contacts to people who do not respond. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, that's like telemarketing to me. That would annoy me if there was something that I didn't want to participate in, and then somebody's repeatedly contacted me about it. And then the full knowledge and support of the commission, the letter saying that we fully support it. I, for one, when we initially talked about it, said that I didn't want to be part of it. So I'm not fully in support of it. Personally, I just think that there's better ways than going through this commission. I don't really want to put my name on a research study saying that I'm for it. And when they're asking to give out people's, information, their contact information, which we don't have, and I don't know if there's legalities to that about even getting it, but I would not be comfortable doing that, since even ours on the application were, for privacy reasons, were not given. So those are pretty much the 3 things that I kind of have issues with, which before I said that when it was first brought up, that I personally did not want to partake in it. So, but after getting this is my feelings on it.
Sure. Anybody else?
Anthony has a hand raised.
This is Oakland University who wants to do the study, not Wayne State University.
I'll make that change. Thank you.
The same thing. Wayne State had a different thing. They had a lecturer who wanted one of us to speak, but this proposal, I believe, is coming from the professors out of Oakland. They answered my questions that I asked last time. If you recall, I asked what academic journals they would be trying to submit the results of this study to, and they listed that. And I am familiar with some of the journals, and they are upstanding academic research journals that do things in a scientific manner, which is how they want to conduct the study. After reading their proposal, I'm more comfortable with it, but I would understand anybody's hesitation to be a part of doing a study. I don't think any of our so normally when you do a study, you have the principal author and you have secondary authors of the study. And I don't think that any of us, unless we want to, but I don't think any of us would have to put our names under, the authorship of the study. To me, it's more of us being the subject of the study. And I think whether or not we want them to do it, I think they can just, even if they don't necessarily have our support, they can, study us in the context of us being a public body, as all of our information, is very transparent and part of the Opens Meeting Act. So that's just a few things to keep in mind with this.
MC.
I'm thinking about how education and getting public input is one of the challenges that we're going to have. And we have such a quick, short timeline to get it all. I think the more education about why people are asked, so as much as I was surprised, I think we each sort of expressed surprise that we were chosen randomly. None of us, we each applied with a one statement application. And I think what I'm suggesting is because we're randomly selected, we're not actually chosen because of, let's say, what we wrote on that line. It feels like this study could help our future commissioners, right? And it certainly is going to get our name out there in the commission and help educate in ways that it seems like, so many people voted for this. It feels like it could be something that many people do want to understand, or frankly, education. I don't know if it's media attention or education. I don't know how to call it, but it does feel like the more that we're out there and engaging with the public, and if we have researchers helping us do that, it feels like it could give us a positive, essentially more informed public who are ultimately giving us right now information that we need, because they're aware that, we want to draw lines fairly and we need communities of interest, et cetera, and that there's over 9,000 people who've applied. And I think they may want to give answers.
Mike, question for you. Is this information they're requesting available under FOIA?
Specifically, in terms of addresses?
Sure.
No, I mean, the Department of State, we would redact that. There's an exemption under this is a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and there's an exemption for private information or personal information. And so the Department of State's position is that, generally speaking, if someone were to submit a FOIA for your personal address, as I think Rhonda has already noted, the way that we proactively put out the applications that you and others have submitted to serve on the commission, we redacted, we left your city, but we redacted your street address and your phone number. And I think, Sally can correct me, I think we may have also redacted your email address. I think that's how we usually handle that. Sally's nodding yes to that. So we would not do that. Of course, your private individuals, you can voluntarily decide to do that, but that's different from your question, Steve, about whether it would have to be disclosed under Freedom of Information Act.
Well, can they, I assume they can FOIA who applied.
They can and have, in fact.
Okay.
We've received those requests. Something like 10,000 applications that came in. Per the Constitution, it was narrowed to, what was it, Sally? It's been 6 months. What are 6 months?
Well,
anyways, it was narrowed down.
You ended up about 9,300 applications thereabouts.
Yes.
And so those names have been supplied to whomever asked for them under FOIA with the redactions you talked about.
So just want to illustrate a little bit what we're talking about for folks who have never engaged in FOIA things before, as I was one of those people a couple of years ago. So somebody will submit a request for the information. In this case, we're talking about who applied to serve on the Citizens Redistricting Commission. And as Mike said, because of sort of legal protections, we are able, to the best of our ability, to redact certain personal contact information. If you'll recall, on the actual application itself, it made note that this was a public document and that the person submitting the application was submitting a public document, but that we would do our best to remove street address and email and personal contact information. And so that's really what actually on the application was said to every person who applied. So we, are legally obligated to provide the list of people who applied and a lot about their application, with the exception of that personal information that we are, as Mike said, legally able to redact. So these researchers, just to be clear, any person in Michigan could request to see that information, but just, not the personal contact details.
Okay, So let me suggest something that maybe we will consider. I don't think we need to officially recommend this study. I guess my position is if they want to do this study, that's fine with me, but don't ask me to bless the study. I'm not going to stand in the way, and whatever they can get through FOIA is fine with me, because they have a right to get it. And then if they want to contact Rhonda 5 times, they're not going to get a response. Rhonda's going to block their phone number. And I probably would never respond, because if I don't know who you are calling me to start with, I'm not going to answer. At any rate, that would be my suggestion. I wouldn't say, yeah, we're going to help you all we can, but we're not going to stand in your way. I'm open for other suggestions.
So just for clarity, then, if I do want to participate, what I'm hearing is y'all, it's okay with you all, like, or with the commission in general, that I, participate. I don't want to do something against the commission. I guess I want to act on behalf of all of us.
Well, I think it's the same as with Gunward. You want to respond to this study that they're doing. That's totally up to you.
Okay, so as an individual, but not on behalf of the whole commission. That's what I'm hearing.
You're not speaking for the commission. I don't know that they're going to ask you a question about the commission other than how come you applied. So.
Very good. Thank you.
I don't know if we need Sally. They've kind of been conversing through you. Are they expecting a response from us?
I don't know if they're expecting a formal response, but I'm happy to email them back, and I can even direct them, if they're not watching right now, to this portion of the meeting where you all discuss it, and sort of relay the collective thoughts that you all provided. I'm happy to do that.
I'd be happy to take a vote on this, but if we're good for what our discussion is. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, Sally, rather than you have to do that, would our executive director be the better person to do that?
I'm happy to loop Sue in and have her do it. Sure.
Yeah, because this will be outreach to outside the state government.
Yeah, and Sue, this is Rebecca speaking. I am also like MC, where I'm fine with participating if they were to reach out to me. I don't know if you want to let them know maybe that Rhonda is not interested and MC and Rebecca are interested, if that might be helpful for the group, so then we're not having people be bothered who don't want to be bothered.
I think our position, Sue, is that if the commission is not taking an official position, we're not saying we're for it or against it. Anybody that wants to participate is totally up to their own personal discretion. And, we as the commission, we do not have possession of the applications. The State Department of State has them. They're not in our possession. And if they wanted to get them, if they were to come to us and ask us through a FOIA for those documents, we would answer, we don't have them. They go to the Secretary of State, which they obviously have already done, I think. So everybody's good with that? No? Yes? Okay. Any other business? That's all I had. All I have. Go ahead, Sally.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, you said you were going to jump back in, yes.
I just wanted to clarify the draft schedule, given the decision that was made about the communications. So I mentioned this, but I just want to make sure this is okay with all of you, that so Thursday, January 7th, we would shorten the time frame of that meeting. It was made so long, estimating out interviews. So we'll shorten the time frame of that meeting, and then likely extend the time frame or sort of plan tentatively on the 14th being the day that you do interviews. I think it's ambitious to think that in an evening timeframe you'd be able to get through. I mean, potentially you could get through the interviews. It depends on how many people, but sort of tentatively plan either the 12th or the 14th to be when you would do those final interviews, and you can make that decision on the 7th. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
So you're going to send us a revised schedule. Propose.
Yeah, I'll update that. I'll update the time frame on Thursday, the 7th.
Sally, can you clarify what will be happening on the 14th?
So my thought is that depending on how many people you all choose to interview, based on Sue's recommendation and how long you want those interviews to be, you could either do it on the 12th or the 14th. And one of those dates, we might just need to extend the time out a little bit, but you could make that decision on the 7th. And we'd have enough time to alert the people who would be interviewed.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
I think so.
I might have an issue on the 14th because I have to go to court, but we'll see. For a client, not for me personally. Let me clarify.
You need bail money?
Absolutely not, Steve. Not me. Try again.
We'll get you a PR bond.
Good luck, Brittany. Maybe someone you know, but I'm representing a client for.
I don't know anybody in Detroit courts. I made a very firm decision when I started practice 40 years ago, never to go to Detroit.
Oh, Detroit's a lovely place. It's for trauma advocacy. That's what I do. So
Okay.
I work with attorneys all day.
We are down to my last point, which is Sue. After seeing this collegial group, do you have any questions, comments, observations? Now's your time.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work today. I think this is a great group. I love to see how well you work together, especially through tough decisions. I really commend this group. I have a kind of short list, but I wanted to let this commission know what I'm thinking my short-term focus areas should be, and then I would value your input if I'm on course or some things may be more important than another. So my short list includes a work plan with timelines, getting a hold of the budget and addressing what that budget looks like, how it's playing out, and if we have enough money in our budget to do the work that this commission feels it needs to do. The RFP, RFQ process for consultants, we're going to have to get on that pretty quickly. I know some draft RFPs have been made, so we'll look at those and start thinking about who we might get for mapping. Also, maybe to look at what software we want for mapping, so the public could possibly put their own maps, send their own maps to us versus sending comments, which is going to be very difficult for us to manage. There will be some onboarding of staff fairly quickly, and also continuing education for the commission. I know there's an interest and a desire to learn, and you've learned a lot, but I've listened, and I know that there's more that we as a team can learn there. I have a question about who we might talk about as a media spokesperson. Is it the communications person? Is it the executive director, or is it the chair of the board? So those are some things to think about. I will tell you, before I accepted the position, I did 3 media interviews in my community. Obviously, that's not big news. It's a small community, but I was on the radio stations explaining this process, and I was surprised to hear the radio people who've been involved in this, and spreading news, that they learned things about the process from me that they didn't know. So I think it's really, really important. And I've heard MC say this more than once, that we start that public education. You can tell from many of the letters that we have received from the public comment that people don't understand the process. So we've got a big job to do there. And And then just a simple procedural thing. Do you want me to prepare a letter to the executive director candidates for Steve Lett to sign as your chair, indicating that I've been selected for the position? They probably all know, but I think it's a common courtesy that we should extend. And, I don't think it should come from me personally. It should come from Steve. So that's my short list.
It's a pretty good list. Did we not send out a letter to the other ED candidates already? Anybody? No? Okay. Please prepare a letter and I'd be happy to sign it. Anybody else got anything to add to Sue's list? Rhonda?
Did she also do one, since we voted today, for the general counsel, a letter for the general counsel?
Well, let's get them hired first.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Doug? Good.
No, I was just going to make the same comment you did to what Rhonda had said.
Okay. All right. If nobody else has anything, we're at the end of our discussion, ending a little early. Make a motion to adjourn. Everybody in favor, raise their hand. Everybody opposed, stay online. Everybody have a good weekend.
Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend, everyone. I enjoyed you all.
Weekend before Christmas, if we
as
don't.
well. Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
I know.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
celebration, however that happens for you and your folks.